The house stood on a hill overlooking a quaint Connecticut town. It was a beautiful Victorian home with a wide porch and a gingerbread trim. Sunlight glinted off its many windows. Inside, the rooms were filled with antiques and the scent of potpourri. This was the Maitlands' dream home. It was a place of peace and quiet. But beneath the surface, a darkness lurked. The house held a secret, a gateway to the afterlife, and soon its serene facade would be shattered. The house had always been a place of transition. Generations had lived and died within its walls. Their spirits lingered, unseen by the living. They were content to observe, their presence a gentle hum in the background. However, the arrival of new owners would disrupt this delicate balance. The stage was set for a clash between the living and the dead, a collision of worlds that would unleash chaos and laughter in equal measure. The Maitlands, oblivious to the supernatural undercurrents, reveled in their idyllic life. They were a couple deeply in love, their days filled with laughter and shared dreams. They tended their garden, worked on their miniature models, and enjoyed the tranquility of their home. They had no idea that their time in the world of the living was about to be cut tragically short. The house on the hill held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The peace was shattered one crisp autumn day. As Adam and Barbara Maitland drove home from town, their car plunged off a bridge. The accident was swift and brutal. In the blink of an eye, their dreams were extinguished. The house on the hill mourned their passing, its wooden bones creaking in sorrow. The spirits within stirred, sensing a shift in the balance between the realms. Adam and Barbara Maitland awoke to a chilling realization. They were no longer alive. They were ghosts, tethered to the home they loved. Their initial confusion quickly gave way to frustration. They were trapped, unable to leave the confines of their house. They wandered the halls, their spectral forms unseen and unheard by the living. The life they knew was gone, replaced by an unsettling existence in the in-between. Their guidebook to the afterlife, the handbook for the recently deceased, offered little comfort. It was a bizarre and unhelpful tome, filled with cryptic instructions and morbid humor. The Maitlands were ill-equipped to navigate the complexities of the afterlife. They yearned to connect with the living, to make their presence known, but their ghostly forms were intangible, their voices mere whispers on the wind. The house itself seemed to amplify their sorrow. The once comforting creaks of the floorboards now sounded like mournful sighs. The ticking of the grandfather clock echoed the passing of time, a constant reminder of their predicament. The Maitlands were adrift in a sea of their own memories, their laughter and joy now distant echoes. They were desperate to break free from their spectral prison. Then came the day the Dietzes arrived, a family from the city. They brought with them a whirlwind of activity and a complete disregard for the sanctity of the Maitlands' beloved home. The Maitlands watched in dismay as their cherished belongings were packed away, their furniture rearranged, and their home transformed into something cold and unfamiliar. Their frustration grew with each passing day. They had to do something, anything, to reclaim their home.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Dietz family was a stark contrast to the quiet, unassuming Maitlands. Charles Dietz, a high-strung real estate developer, saw the house as his latest investment opportunity. Delia, his sculptor wife, envisioned transforming it into a postmodern art piece. Their daughter, Lydia, a gloomy and morbid teenager, was the only one who seemed to sense the presence of the unseen. Their arrival shattered the stillness of the house, replacing it with a cacophony of urban energy. Charles, with his phone permanently attached to his ear, bulldozed through the house, making plans for renovations. Delia, draped in flowing scarves and armed with paint swatches, saw artistic potential in every corner. Lydia, clad in black and clutching her Edgar Allan Poe anthology, wandered the halls, drawn to the house's melancholic aura. The Maitlands watched in horror as their once peaceful home became a whirlwind of activity. The Dietzes were oblivious to the ghostly presence that shared their home. They dismissed the strange noises and eerie occurrences as old house quirks. Charles, ever the pragmatist, attributed every creak and groan to settling foundations. Delia, lost in her artistic vision, simply rearranged her sculptures to mask any unsightly supernatural manifestations. Only Lydia, with her fascination with the macabre, seemed to sense that something was amiss. The Maitlands quickly realized that their spectral forms held no sway over the Dietzes. Their attempts to communicate were met with blank stares and dismissive shrugs. The Dietzes were too caught up in their own world to notice the subtle signs of the supernatural. The Maitlands were starting to lose hope. They were trapped, invisible and unheard, in their own home. They needed a plan, a way to make the Dietzes see that they were not alone. Section 4. Ghostly Pranks and Comic Mishaps. Driven to desperation, the Maitlands decided to up the ante. They consulted their trusty handbook for the recently deceased, searching for ways to scare the Dietzes into leaving. What followed was a series of increasingly outrageous and hilarious attempts at ghostly intimidation. They rattled chains, moaned in the chimney, and even tried their hand at creating spooky apparitions. The results were more comical than terrifying. Their attempts at ghostly special effects were met with disastrous, albeit hilarious, results. Instead of striking fear into the hearts of the Dietzes, they ended up covered in paint, tangled in fishing line, and launched headfirst into a plate of shrimp cocktails. The house echoed with their frustrated groans and the Dietzes' oblivious chatter. Even in death, it seemed, their lives were destined to be a comedy of errors. Despite their best efforts, the Dietzes remained blissfully unaware of the supernatural mayhem unfolding around them. Charles, ever the pragmatist, attributed the strange occurrences to faulty wiring and drafts. Delia, preoccupied with her artistic endeavours, simply incorporated the ghostly apparitions into her latest sculpture. Lydia, however, started to suspect that their new home was not as ordinary as it seemed. The Maitlands were at their wits' end. Their attempts at scaring the Dietzes were failing miserably. They were starting to lose hope. Just when they were about to resign themselves to a lifetime of haunting a family immune to their ghostly charms, they stumbled upon a name in the handbook for the recently deceased that promised to change everything: Beetlejuice. Section 5. Beetlejuice, 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 Beetlejuice. The name itself sent shivers down their spectral spines. He was a bioexorcist, a freelance ghoul who specialized in scaring the living. He was their last resort, their only hope of reclaiming their home from the oblivious Dietzes. But summoning Beetlejuice was a risky proposition. He was known for his unpredictable nature and his penchant for wreaking havoc. With a mixture of trepidation and desperation, the Maitlands uttered his name 3 times. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. The very air crackled with energy. The room plunged into darkness and a sulphurous odour filled the air. And then he arrived. Beetlejuice, a grotesque and mischievous spirit, materialized before their eyes. He was everything they had feared and more. Beetlejuice was chaos personified. His clothes were a riot of stripes and plaid, his hair a vibrant shade of green, and his teeth seemed to have a life of their own. He spoke in a rapid-fire, gravelly voice, spewing puns and innuendos with gleeful abandon. The Maitlands watched in a mixture of awe and horror as he surveyed their home, his eyes gleaming with malicious delight. They had unleashed a force of nature, and they weren't sure they could control him. Beetlejuice, true to his nature, had plans of his own. He saw the Dietzes not as an annoyance to be exorcised, but as an opportunity for entertainment. He delighted in their discomfort, reveling in their terror. The house became a battleground for his twisted sense of humour as he subjected the Dietzes to a barrage of supernatural pranks, far more terrifying than anything the Maitlands could have conjured. The Maitlands watched in dismay as their home descended into chaos, realizing they had made a terrible mistake.